Ever wondered if there are questions a computer, any computer, no matter how powerful, could just never answer? That's the big idea at the heart of the Church-Turing thesis. It's all about drawing the line for what's even possible in the digital world.
We kind of think of computers as these all-powerful things. If something's too slow, just throw more processing power at it, right? But what if some problems are just fundamentally unsolvable? And I'm not talking about speed or memory here. I mean, what if some questions are just completely, totally off limits to computation forever?
So, way before we even had computers, mathematicians were talking about something they called an effective method. Now, this was a pretty informal idea, but think of it like a perfect recipe. A set of steps so clear, so mechanical, that literally anyone could follow them without any creative spark, and boom, you're guaranteed to get the right answer every single time.
But here's the catch. Intuitive and fuzzy just don't cut it in mathematics. If you want to prove that some problems are truly impossible to solve, you can't rely on a vague idea of a recipe. You need something concrete. You need a rock-solid formal definition of what an algorithm actually is. And that need for a definition, it basically set off an intellectual firestorm in the 1930s. The big challenge everyone was trying to tackle was something called the Entscheidungsproblem, or decision problem, posed by the great mathematician David Hilbert. He asked this incredibly profound question. Could we, in theory, create one universal algorithm that could tell us if any mathematical statement is true or false? So the race was on. And what happened next was this incredible burst of genius. We had these different approaches popping up all around the same time. You had Kurt Gödel looking into recursive functions. That's basically functions that can call themselves to break down problems. Then you had Alonzo Church, who was busy building this whole world out of pure abstract logic. And at the same time, a young Alan Turing was dreaming up a simple but incredibly powerful theoretical machine. And these approaches could not have been more different from each other. Over in the US, Alonzo Church came up with his lambda calculus, a really dense abstract system of pure logic. But then, over in Britain, Alan Turing had this totally different, much more mechanical idea. A machine that just reads and writes symbols on a long strip of tape based on a set of simple rules. And that idea? Well, it turned out to be the blueprint for literally every computer we use today. Now, this whole thing was not a smooth ride. Not at all. When Church first proposed his lambda calculus as the definition of computation, the legendary Kurt Gödel himself was, well, not impressed. He actually called it thoroughly unsatisfactory. It just goes to show you how high the stakes were. Even the absolute geniuses of the time were really struggling to wrap their heads around these revolutionary new concepts. Okay, so let's recap. We have these three totally different, seemingly unrelated ideas for what an algorithm is. You've got pure logic, you've got this idea of recursion, and you've got a mechanical tape machine. Three different paths. But then, something absolutely incredible happened. A moment of convergence that, honestly, changed everything. So think about it. On one hand, Gödel's recursive functions. It's a system built completely out of arithmetic. Then you have Church's lambda calculus, which is this whole universe of abstract symbols and logic. And finally, Turing's machine, a very physical, very mechanical concept. I mean, these were three completely different worlds. And then, the bombshell dropped. It turned out, and this is one of the most stunning discoveries in the history of science, that all three of these systems were equivalent in power. Anything one of them could compute, the others could too. A problem solvable with lambda calculus was also solvable by a Turing machine. It was all the same thing. This was an absolutely universe-shaking revelation. So seeing this incredible convergence, this shocking result, gave mathematicians the confidence they needed to make a really bold claim, not just about their fancy formal systems, but about the very nature of computation itself. And that brings us to the thesis itself, the Church-Turing thesis. Here's what it says. Our fuzzy, intuitive idea of an effective method, that perfect recipe we talked about, is exactly the same as what a formal mathematical Turing machine can compute. It's the bridge that connects our human intuition to the cold, hard world of formal mathematics. But wait, why is it called a thesis and not a theorem? Well, that's the key. You can't use math to prove an informal, intuitive idea like a recipe. It's just not possible. But, and this is a huge but, for decades now, every single new model of computation anyone has ever dreamed up has been proven to be equivalent. The evidence is just so overwhelming that we've accepted it as the absolute bedrock of all of computer science.
Okay, so this is a super fascinating piece of history, right? But why should you care about it today? Because by drawing that line, by defining the absolute limits of computation, it opened the door to even more wild, mind-bending questions. Questions about what's actually possible in our physical universe. See, the original thesis was really just the start. It led to new ideas, like the complexity thesis. This one asks a different question. Not just, can we solve it, but can we solve it efficiently, in a reasonable amount of time? Think about cracking a password by just trying every combination. Sure, it's possible, but it might take longer than the age of the universe. Then you've got the physical thesis, which goes even deeper and asks, what are the limits that the actual laws of physics place on computation? And hey, this isn't just some abstract theory. That device you're using to watch this right now, your phone, your laptop, whatever it is, it's a real physical version of a universal Turing machine. That means, in theory, it has the power to simulate any other computer program out there. It's just an amazing testament to the power of that simple idea from way back in the 1930s. This all leads to a really wild, out there idea from digital physics. What if the universe itself is just a giant computer? The strong Church-Turing thesis basically suggests exactly that. And if that's true, then the limits of what can be computed aren't just abstract mathematical ideas anymore, they're fundamental laws of nature, just like gravity.
And that, of course, brings us to the ultimate question, one that thinkers like Roger Penrose have spent their lives wrestling with. If the universe is a computer, what does that make us? Is the human mind, with all its incredible creativity and flashes of intuition, just another computable process? Or is there something more going on, something fundamentally non-algorithmic happening inside our skulls? The Church-Turing thesis doesn't give us the answer, but man, it really forces us to ask the question.